What's going on, everybody? Jorge Aquino coming to you live and direct. It's Tormenting Tarmac podcast where the enthusiast never dies, coming to you live and direct on a very windy night here on the west side of the PHX. My guest tonight, I love this guest. He's been one of my heroes for the past 15 years, and he keeps on coming back to this podcast because I guess he thinks I'm doing an okay job, and I take that as a badge of honor. The ever opinionated, never replicated Jonny Lieberman from Motor Trend, the co-host of the Inevitable podcast, co-host over at Spikes Car Radio, and my good buddy. What's going on, brother? Great to see you.
Not much, man. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm getting over a badass cold, Johnny. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. It's kind of nasty.
Little bit, yeah, a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit.
It's just been real wicked out here because okay, so get this. We had our first 90-degree day of the year
I,
last week in
I mean,
February.
you know what's kooky was it's been raining out here in LA for the last 2 days, but
Mm-hmm.
it was like in the mid 80s. It was for in February. It was
Yeah.
hot. Like it's just random weather is the new normal, sadly.
100%.
So
It's
yeah,
climate change. Hey, it's global warming and climate change is real. But hey, I'm,
it's a
I'm,
crazy
I'm
thing.
not. I'm not even gonna get. I'm not even gonna venture into that
I
route.
was just gonna say the problem with Phoenix is that you'll get over 100 for 6 months. That's the problem.
Yes, I
You don't
would
get the
know.
rainy days. Yeah. It was like 47 and raining today all day.
I
Uh,
wish we could have had that. We had
yeah.
today actually was like 64 and windy, like really windy. And I was like, I just need like it's been a really dry winter over here for us because usually we do get some rain during our winters and stuff like that, but it rained like maybe in the beginning of February, like after Barrett Jackson Car Week and stuff like that. But it really that was it. And I was really surprised. I was like, man, I need this to kind of moisten up a little bit and whatnot. But we're already in March, spring's around the corner. It's like, all right, I guess we're not going to go ahead and get that moisture, but it is what it
Mhm.
is, so it's all good. But one of the first things that I wanted to go ahead and talk to you about tonight, man, is
Yes, sir.
you are obviously integral part of the Los Angeles car culture. You have been for basically the entirety of your life, or at least for a
I don't know
long
about
time.
that, but okay.
But you know what I'm saying,
For the purposes of your podcast, let's go with yes.
let's go
Okay.
with yes, right?
Okay. Okay.
But like one of the things, obviously, I was watching it closely. The entire country was really watching it closely with the fires and everything like that. Thank God you guys finally got the rain and everything. It seems like LA, and please correct me if I'm wrong when I say this. It seems like Los Angeles is finally coming back to some sort of normality, which thank God, right?
Unless your house burned down. Yes.
Yes, let me be very clear. And my thoughts and prayers continue to go out to those who did lose their homes, which I
Yeah.
know that there was a lot of them. It doesn't matter where you are on the economic scale, losing a house is losing a house,
Yeah,
and it
man.
sucks. And, these insurance companies better come through in the clutch. But I guess one of the questions that I want to kind of start you off with, Johnny, is how have you seen LA really try to come together, whether it's within the car scene, whether it's within, just LA itself? Like, what have you been able to notice, and what are you seeing out of LA right now?
Yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of sadness. And it was sort of this double whammy of like I was literally picking my kid up from school today with a neighbor, and we were just talking like, how are your friends that lost their home doing? Oh, they're
Right.
okay. How are your friends that lost everything and their homes? Oh, they're okay. So there was a lot of sadness, and there was a lot of like how do I put this? A lot of people that weren't here telling us uh why it was happening, which was like insane. Like if you weren't around on that Tuesday night when a city like LA had 100-mile-an-hour winds, which is just like, I've lived here almost 50 years or whatever it's been. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, just please don't comment, and so it was rough. LA did a good job of coming together in so much as like seemed to be a lot of money was raised. Like it was way too many GoFundMe's. But most of the ones I saw raised more than they were asking.
For sure.
Is it enough? Look, if you have fire insurance, you're gonna be okay. The insurance will take care of you. The people I feel the worst for is like my gardener, for instance, uh, rented a house and that burned down and they have no insurance. So that was That's really rough. I was mentioning my neighbor, like her friend, single mom, one kid, and their rental house burned down, and that's just a bad situation. So I
Right.
don't know, I don't know who picked up those pieces, but it came together. The city came together. I mean, as much as LA, that's the thing with LA. It's like it's not one city. It's like 40 or 80 cities in one. So
And
like
one.
I'm close to Altadena. So I was really, and I had friends in the Palisades area that, and lots of friends in Malibu that lost houses. But like it was just funny, like talking to my friends on the west side, and they're just like, oh my God, the Palisades, the Palisades. And over here, we're like, no, but Altadena's gone.
Right.
So even then it was a little fractious, a little fractured. But yeah, it's just one of those, horrible things that'll wind up in a history book one day that a lot of us had to live through. But like, whatever I forget the number of homes destroyed. It's like 11,000 families are just changed forever, you
Right.
know. So
It's and I don't want this to be a depressing thing, but that was one
yeah,
of the
yeah,
one things that I wanted to talk to you about. I remember texting you, checking in on you. I checked in on shout out to Corey Burns, obviously, good friend of the pod too. And like, it was crazy. I remember you sending me a screenshot of the map, and you told me like this is where my neighborhood is, and there was this like 5 mile radius, dude. Which I don't like. We think of 5 miles, like especially within walking distance. It's a distance, right? It's quite a distance. But when you have 100-mile-an-hour winds and everything kind of being pushed all over the place, you don't know what direction is going to go to next. You're like, yo, this is wild,
it
dude. It's
was it was
crazy.
crazy. Yeah, so that map I sent you was I was showing you that like my house was about zero point 0.8 miles from an evacuation zone. So
Right,
there was two things. There was an evacuation warning, and then there was an evacuation zone. So the warning was like, hey, you might have to evacuate.
right,
Evac zone is like, get out now, leave. Um, Luckily, we're on the other side of this freeway called the 134, and the fire never pushed south of that, so we never evacuated. But at like 4 in the morning, we were awake, staring at the stupid app, great app, but stupid app for
yeah.
the purpose of this conversation. And then the what I sent you was little fires started popping up everywhere. So there's like the
Mm-hmm.
big fires that made the national news everyone heard about, but then there was like my brother-in-law, he had to evacuate twice from this little fire out in the North Valley that kept popping up.
Right,
It was just like a mile from their house. It was not the one that destroyed neighborhoods, but it was just really close to them. And so, yeah, at one point we were surrounded by like three different fires, and one of those was Altadena. But the other one was not the Palisades. We're far from the Palisades fire, but there was like one, in Hollywood. There was one in North Valley, which we're kind of close to. So yeah,
right.
it was just crazy. It was and it was just spreading and changing, and you just didn't know.
Yeah.
It was just yeah, that was a very bad that was a bad night.
No, I get it, man. I mean, and I remember there was a visual of this, like, it was like a McDonald's or something like
Yeah,
that. And I remember seeing it, right? Because it made
yeah.
like headlines. And it's just like, man, it looked straight out of the movie Volcano. You remember Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones? Like, not making a joke out of it. Literally, I was like, to see this in real life, I was like, yo, that's not CGI. Like, that is not
And that,
1997 special effects. Like, that is real time
yeah,
craziness,
my
you know?
friend, blanking, I get his name wrong. Yeah, I'll look it up. Anyways, my friend took that video. He's a fire photographer.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, that was yeah, it was there was palm trees on fire in front of McDonald's, but you could see the wind. It's hard to
Yeah.
explain the wind. It was just crazy that night.
Yeah.
And again, it was a combination of like very hot winds.
Yeah.
Uh, we're used to the Santa Ana winds, but these were much more powerful than we've ever seen before. And then normally by early January, Los Angeles has gotten 5 inches of rain, and we'd had zero point 0.2 inches, so 500% less than normal.
Right.
Then and then driven by most insane winds I've ever lived through. Maybe not maybe in Florida it's been I was once in like a small hurricane in Florida, but
Yeah.
they're used to that. We're not used to that,
Exactly. No,
And
no, it's
those
the
are wet.
thing.
This is dry.
At
Um,
least you don't get a fire starting up in a hurricane. Well, I mean, you could
yeah.
if like
So it
electrical
was
stuff, but yeah,
it was a lot. It really was a lot. It
yeah,
was just very depressing. And then you just like honestly, Jorge, like I'd have to stop and think. I've lost count of the number of people I know that lost their house. Now, is it all my best friends? No. I have
yeah.
two extremely close friends that lost their house. But like, this woman Faye, who was a Motor Trend videographer for years, her house burnt down. Just I just lots of people I know lost their home. So it was just crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and it was, and I forget again the numbers, but I think it was 6,000 houses in Altadena and 5,000 or so in the Palisades, which is a lot.
It's a
It's
lot, man.
a lot.
But you know what? I really appreciated seeing everything. And I tried to share everything I could via Instagram. I was like spamming stories like nobody else's business and whatnot. I saw you were sharing a bunch. Lindsay Jesh, who's a friend of the podcast, sharing a bunch and whatnot. Callie Moldovan, who's a buddy to the guest as well, sharing and whatnot. One thing I really did appreciate, and this is, and again, for the purposes of this podcast, it being a car culture podcast and whatnot, the community in LA, the car community in LA really like it always comes together for the right things. I think that's what makes LA car culture so special. Because it doesn't matter, like it just comes together, and the way that the car community over there really came together, bringing everything that was needed for those people in need and things of that nature. Big shout out to Blip Shift of Tour. You work a lot with Blip Shift. Those shirts were super dope, and I know that you guys raised a bunch of funds for them and whatnot. Like that was the kind of positivity that I was seeing. That I was just like, yeah, this is why we love it. Other than the cars, like it's people like that who really give a shit.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
it's a good point. Like my buddy, I don't know if you know who Sean Lee is, but he runs that thing, the Purist Group. And
Yeah.
Sean was, day one, he was organizing donation drives at the Pasadena Civic Center. I was helping lots of people like Matt Farah, who, has car storage facilities. I was getting lots of people in touch, like didn't necessarily lose their house, but like they wanted to move their car, they're getting
Right.
evacuated and they needed a place to stash their car for a week. So I was getting people in touch with Matt. Yeah, Blip Shift and me, we did a t-shirt. I had one of those like those super scooper planes. And it was good, we raised almost $8,000 for what's called the excuse me, I think it's the California Benevolent Firefighters Association.
Yeah.
And so that's a group. So what was happening, it was kind of crazy, was a lot of firefighters live in Altadena, and then the Palisades fire sort of happened like a few hours before. So there was people, if you imagine this, they were fighting the fighters in the Palisade while their homes were burning down in Altadena.
That's
Um,
wild, dude.
yeah, and so like I got inspired for this because a friend of mine who's a very wealthy guy, he's maybe written a couple of the Batman movies. He had a spare house, and so he put like a bunch of firefighters who had lost their homes in one of his houses, so they could just bunk there till they got
Right.
everything sorted out, and they were still on the clock working. So I talked to like just a lot of people in the know, a lot of children of firefighters. My friend is a firefighter. My other friend is a fire photographer. I said, what's the best way to like get money to those guys?
Right.
And the Benevolent Association, that's for firefighters who are injured on the job, or if a firefighter is killed on the job, takes care of their families. And so yeah, so that's the organization we gave the money to.
I love that. And you know what, man? Shout out to them all. I saw I watched part of the Oscars this past weekend, right? And I saw I think that they presented an award, or they brought a bunch of them on stage, and I was like, that's how you use that platform right there.
Mm. Mhm.
Honor those peeps who busted their asses throughout this entire time to go ahead and make sure that no matter rich or poor, they were trying to protect your home from burning down from
Totally.
these wildfires. And like it's just you love to see it. And again, this is far from over in the sense of like people are having to rebuild from ground zero and whatnot. But like, God willing, like the proper people get the right assistance to be able to
Hmm.
go ahead and restart their lives all over again and whatnot. And again, my love and appreciation for the city of Los Angeles will never steer away. I mean, hell, dude, I went up to the Velocity Invitational in October. I had to drive through LA and whatnot. So to know that the next time I go to LA, whenever they might be, I'm gonna drive through it. Of course, it's in different sections, right? But like to know, like, damn, man, whatever just happened here, like however many months ago or whatever, like it's not, it's gonna be weird to go ahead and be like, the fact that this city went through what it went through it's really difficult to try and comprehend. But if anybody can go ahead and come up from that, it's LA. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
and that's what you love about LA, because I feel like the people of Southern California, y'all have like this really amazing mindset that you guys don't lay down for shit. You know what I mean? You never have, you never will. So again, big
Yeah,
shout
I
out to
mean, we're
Moda.
used to all kinds of,
Yeah.
earthquakes, Baton Eye, I mean, look, this is the only city in America where, if the Super Bowl's going on, you don't notice it.
Yeah.
Meaning, I remember when the Super Bowl happened in LA at SoFi
Yeah.
Stadium, like nothing. You go to like Philadelphia, like, the city shut down or whatever, but LA, like whatever. And it's a massive place. But yeah, those were, hopefully we'll never see anything else like that again. That was just
Yeah.
crazy, crazy fires, crazy fires.
Yeah, no, but I wanted to make sure I gave focus to that really quickly, because again,
Yeah,
I got a
absolutely.
love for you guys and whatnot, and it was heartbreaking to see, but you love to see you guys coming back up from it and whatnot. But let's go ahead and let's play a little catch up with Johnny, man, because last time you were on the pod would have been what, last summer, if I'm not mistaken,
I,
June of 2024.
I do 17 podcasts a day. I have no
I
idea.
hear you, brother. I know. So that's why I always take it as
You
a
tell
privilege.
me.
I always take it as a privilege when Jonny Lieberman says, "I will do your podcast,"
Oh,
because,
please. It's
yeah,
fun to
because you're
talk.
my
Come on.
boy, bro.
Come
But
on.
it's always a treat. So last time we chatted was
Yeah.
summer. We had so much fun. I think you had been to Italy. You went to Spain to drive one of I think it was the Audi, one of the Qs. Um,
Q6.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
Q6.
Yeah.
We talked
And
a
the
bunch of the
SQ6. Yeah.
and the XQ6, and we obviously talked a bunch about the SL and the new AMG GT and things of that nature. We're obviously now in March of 2025. You just got back from Miami. Shout out to Moda and everything. My girl Colby was out there. I saw Drew Kloblitz, who's going to be on the pod hopefully the next couple of months.
I
He was
suck.
out.
That was funny actually. He was in a golf cart and we just talked to him for briefly for a second and
Yeah,
like bad joke, but there was like a kid who was there from Make-A-Wish and like Koblitz was like showing the kid around and I'm just like, oh man, you wish for Koblitz? Like, oh kid, like he could have done better. He could have wished for anybody. Koblitz?
oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
love that. You know
Yeah.
what? Koblitz is a man of taste. I will absolutely give him all the props and whatnot. And I can't wait to be able to go ahead and chat with him. But you were there. Magnus
Hmm.
Walker was there. I think
Hmm.
I saw you and Farah flew together. I believe he was out, right?
That was a total coincidence. It was just one
No
of those
way.
funny
Was
things. It was just, and it was funny. I had dinner with Matt like a week before we left, and
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh, are you going to Moda?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Funny enough, I'm going to be in Florida at the same time. His family's on vacation in Key Largo,
gotcha.
which is like the first key." But yeah, it makes total sense that we're both like on the same flight in the same row.
Of
But
course.
that was the best part was like, because we're larger gentlemen, and so we're diamond
On Delta, of
and we
course.
sit
Who
down and there's a seat between us, and I'm like, how much is the guy gonna weigh who sits between us? And Matt's like, oh,
I saw that
270,
story. I saw that
270.
story and I freaking lost it, bro. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
yeah,
I was like, that was so good.
yeah. And the guy was about 230 pounds who sat between us. Now, Matt and I are both, 260-ish, so
Yeah.
but whatever, it was fine. No, but yeah, so Magnus was there. Magnus and I actually gave a little talk on Saturday. And he brought the TWR Supercat.
Yep.
And so we talked about that. And we also just talked about a little, it's one of those weird things. Like it sounded good on the phone where we're like, yeah, we'll talk about LA car culture, but then like to go to Miami and lecture about car culture it's just weird.
It
Like
is weird, especially when it's two different a variety of different car sectors, right? And
well, it's
Florida.
just
Yeah.
it's more, how do I put this? It's more like very similar types of cars in both places. Um, we have good roads, they don't. They know that. And so it was we just kind of talked about cars. It was fun and the moderators were great, Nick and Will, and it was a good talk. And but yeah, no man, MOTA Miami, like that's that put that on your calendar, folks. It's it's like Amelia Island. Look, this is no secret. It's a spite show created by RM because they're upset that Haggerty started Broad Arrow and took over Amelia Island. Um, but now it's on a different weekend because Amelia
Right.
Island actually starts like today, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
I have friends over there right now.
yeah, but it's like yeah, it's a little less stuffy than Amelia Island, a little less formal. Um, the
It's
hotel's way
also
better.
Miami compared to Norflaw.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a good point.
Yeah,
The hotel, real quick, the hotel, the Biltmore, is just
it's
wow,
spectacular from what it looks like,
wow,
dude. I know.
wow. I didn't even really get to take any good pictures of the interior, but like, wow, what a hotel. Um, uh, and like, yeah, if when you're in Amelia Island, which is a little, island kind of between Jacksonville and Georgia, yeah, at night you're at the hotel, or I don't know, you could maybe go into town. Here you're in Miami, and I went out with a friend and had a really great dinner on the beach, and then went back to the hotel. So I I kind of pref yeah, I don't know. I've had a good time at both, but I expected very little, and I
Right.
was very impressed by a second year show to be as the cars were magnificent. It was like, and so they have about 250 cars that were eligible for judging because they did
Hmm.
have show winners and everything like that. And then on Sunday, there was a cars and coffee, supercars only, invite only at the University of Miami, and then 100 supercars drove over to
That's
Moda and,
so
and
sick.
drove on the lawn, and some really good stuff. I mean, like,
The chef's kiss of chef's kisses, from what I can see, by the way.
I mean, I've never seen a Lamborghini VTTT in person before, and there was
So
one.
that curated's card, Johnny?
You know,
Or
I don't know. The curated is so massive, like probably, but I
yeah,
don't know. I don't think it was. I think it was private.
okay.
Um, there
I
was
only
an
because I
Aston.
remember John Tamarian doing a video for the curated channel like about a year and a half ago, and it was a black twin turbo VT, which is like there's those cars are like extremely rare, right?
Yes, I have no idea how many
Yeah,
they made, but I know like you're talking about like the Lamborghini GT, they made 80 of those, so I assume they
right.
made less of the VTTT. Um, it was just magnificent. Somebody had an Aston Martin Valor. I mean, come on, it's like
Yeah. Oh my God. By the way, I'd like to apologize for anybody who's going to be watching on this video and they're like looking at me and they're like, Jorge, what the hell are you doing? I'm having the hardest eye allergy attack that I've ever experienced. And it's happening right now with Jonny Lieberman. This is what happens, folks. It's a pain in the ass. Like my eyes are burning like a motherfucker, but it's
from the
fine.
from the
We,
wind.
I don't know what it is. I think I'm just, I'm wearing my glasses and whatnot, and they're tearing up, and I can't see.
I
It's
get that
happening mid pod.
sometimes when
You know
if
how
I'm
it
watching
is.
TV, like my glasses will
Exactly.
start to hurt. Yeah, it's weird.
Exactly. So I'm gonna just take them off for now.
There
And
you
if I
go.
look like I'm crying, it's because I'm really crying of emotion because Jonny Lieberman's one of my good friends in the space.
But
So, but
anyways, no, it was
yeah,
it was it was great. And then like so I wasn't there last year, but they couldn't get any like OEMs manufacturers to sponsor the show. This year they had I think Cadillac, Rolls-Royce, and Mercedes. And Mercedes went big, and they brought first of all they brought one of the junkyard cars from the Rudy Klein collection.
yeah,
So this was the 300 SL Roadster, and the Classic Center had it. It was funny, like about 2 weeks after that auction, I went down to the Classic Center to look at the thing, and Nate Landers, who is the chief mechanic at the Classic Center in Long Beach, I was just hanging out with him, and he like pulled the valve cover off, and he's like spinning everything. He's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "I think if I put a new gas tank and fuel lines on here, it would work." And the
yeah,
car runs and drives. I didn't get. I'm going to drive it like in a week or so, but Magnus drove it around, and even Magnus was like, "Man, I'm buzzing from this car. It was really
yeah.
cool." And they
Had
did. They had to do this crazy restoration on it because they didn't want to touch the exterior. Uh,
right.
because it's like this, it's just rotten. rotten car, but it was missing some pieces. So what they had to do is they had to like find pieces and then like make them look like they had been sitting in a junkyard for 40 years or whatever. And then it didn't have an interior, so they had to like they did all this cool stuff. They took like two kind of ratty interiors that they pulled out of old cars that had been restored and they still had them. And they were like gluing them together and like putting like Alcantara on the back of them because like leather would like it would keep splitting open. So they glued a piece of Alcantara behind it to stop the split. And if you look, it's like the right color underneath and just really, really neat. They brought a silver arrow. They brought it was really, really cool. Silver
That's
a W196 like Grand Prix car. So it was
which what was the one that went that we talked about when we were with when we recorded with Caitlin back in October of 2023. That was
oh, the Uhlenau coupe.
the Uhlenau Coupe, right? That was what
Yeah,
the
so the
wild thing.
Mercedes sold the Uhlenau coupe for what $143 million, most expensive car ever sold.
Yeah,
And that's a W 196, and that one it was a street car body. All the rest were race cars.
yeah,
But yeah, it's $100 million car, and they just brought it along. It was a very good car show.
hell
Um,
yeah. So when
and
I was at the Velocity Invitational back in October, at the Sotheby Motorsports, obviously part of RM Sotheby, um, they they had the one of however many alloy coupes that I think
29.
you right that
It
you
was
went ahead and I think you went to the actual auction itself like a couple of weeks after Velocity. I think it was like in November.
yeah.
That car wasn't it didn't have like an estimate of like 9 to 11 mil or something like that. Was that right?
No, its estimate was lower. It sold from over the estimate. It was estimate was like 3 to 6 million. It was funny. They actually got it wrong. They had a I can't remember some pre-war car they thought would go for big money,
Yeah.
and but this one, yeah, there's 29 alloy coupe is of the Mercedes 300 SLs, the gull wings. 29 of them had aluminum bodies, alloy coupe they call them. And so your average gull wing is about $1.5 million, and your
Yeah.
average alloy coupe is about 12 million. And so this junkyard one, went for like 8.3 million or
It's a
something, and
lot.
didn't run and blah 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 blah. Yeah, it went for a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, that thing's pretty cool. And yeah, so it was a very, very fun auction. I found out after the auction that because people were bidding it up. Um, and one of the people bidding on it was Mercedes-Benz, like the corporation.
Oh, no way. Oh, you
Yeah,
talked
but they,
about this with Farah. That's right. That's right. I remember this. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, and they were told to like, don't spend more than 7 million, so they stopped bidding. But it was a cool auction. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
really neat thing.
What a
Um,
wild thing when Mercedes gets told don't go over seven. Mercedes Benz, of all the car companies in the world, being told you have a limit of 7 million on this car and
I
they
mean, look,
still get outbid.
everything comes out of a budget, so they just, it's and
The
the guy.
accountants do have to step in at some point, guys.
And the guy they were bidding against had, about as much money as Mercedes. So it was,
Which is wild.
yeah, yeah,
That is rad. No, man,
yeah.
I remember seeing that car. And the funny thing, I remember talking to my buddy Michael Zimmerman. Shout out to him. Shout out to his lovely wife Samantha, who's a big friend of the pod. An awesome automotive hyperrealism artist based out of San Antonio, Florida.
Oh,
They're
that's cool.
amazing. I love them. They actually, Johnny, they bought this sick 964 turbo. Shout out to them. It's fire. But
We like that.
we do like that. Um, I remember him telling me that that car was originally black. That was an
Yeah.
original black alloy car. And I was like, and you look at the car and you're like, that don't look black, bro. Like, what? You know what I mean?
Well, it was painted. And look,
Yeah.
a lot of cars got painted and still get
Right.
painted, but you can, it was silver on the outside, but like, when the doors are up, you can see the black paint
Yeah.
very well on the internals. So it's definitely a black car. I don't know the plan for the restoration. Again, with the other one with the 300 SL Roadster, it was just like keep it as is. So I would imagine because the coupe had a nice red interior, black paint on red interior, it's hard to beat, and so I imagine it's going to get the full restoration. And then, once you put $2 million into the $8.7 million cards, yeah, it's worth about 12 million bucks.
It's worth
So
about 10. At that point, and that's what's so interesting about car collection in that realm, right, Johnny? Because it's like you think to yourself, well, what's the collector mindset? Like, do you sell it off at that point, or do you keep it? Like, do you want to drive it? You'd think you'd want to drive it, but at the same time, it's a masterpiece. It's a showroom piece. It's
well,
it's a museum piece. It's wild.
yeah, I would say with 300 SLs, drive them. They're meant to be driven. They're great.
Yeah,
I'm very lucky. I've driven a lot of 300 SLs, much more than my fair share, and like drive them, drive them, drive them, drive them. They're wonderful. It's
they are.
really kind of, if I stop and think about it, like really kind of the greatest cars ever built. They're just incredible.
So I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine. Shout out to Greg Oxer, good buddy. Him and I were having a conversation. I think you kind of lean this way, but I'm curious to get your opinion. Do you feel that between Mercedes and Ferrari, Mercedes has the bigger and potentially better investment style? I guess an investor brandness into them, because like there's so much racing pedigree behind everything that they did prior to the 60s. It's actually kind of wild. I mean, you know
Or
that.
prior to 55, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to argue against Ferrari. Like Ferraris appreciate more than Rembrandts. And I was at MOTA at the RM. So look, there was a 1908 Mercedes
Okay.
sold for, I don't know, 7 million bucks. It's a lot. It
Smidge.
was pretty cool. It had a 17.3 liter four cylinder. It's pretty significant car.
I
Um,
love that. Jay
yeah.
Leno would geek on that, bro.
Well, Jalen, he's got 40 some cylinder engines in
Yeah.
his place, but or 40 some liters. Um, but then there was like a F50, which isn't
Mhm.
that old, which sold for over five, the most ever paid for an F50 at auction, most ever paid for an F50 period. There was an F40 that went for three something.
It's a lot
Uh,
for an F40.
there was an Enzo that did not sell, did not hit reserve at 4.9 million. So I don't know. It's one of those weird things. Like the people that collect them, they have both. So it's sort of a
Right.
moot point. It's like, oh, should I have Tesla or Nvidia stock? It's like, well, diversify, have both. I
Sure.
think at the very high end, Mercedes has shown with the Uhlenhaut Coupe that they're untouchable. But there's two Uhlenhaut coupes. One was worth 143 million. There's 33 Ferrari 250 GTOs, and 32 of them are worth about 70 million, and one's worth about 40 million.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, probably Ferrari, but you know.
They're
But I
they're they're
drove I
both
drove
amazing,
a
right?
I drove this thing. It was a 1929. It was 1929 W06. So what's that? So it's like the just the big Mercedes of the 20s. And the one I drove belonged to this Maharaj in India who had a boat that was painted the same way. And supposedly, according to the Mercedes, the car I was driving was worth $27 million. Um, so, that's a lot. You know, eh, um, you
It's
know,
so much money, Johnny. I'm
yeah.
trying.
To me, it was only a $9 million driving experience. I don't know where the other 18 million comes in, but it was it's for the discerning collector. It's a hell of a car.
Yeah.
Uh but
Remind me. I
yeah,
feel that I remember you once. Yes, you did the Mille Miglia one time,
I
like back
did.
back in the day, and
I
you like
did.
Mercedes had you drive the 300 SL,
Oh,
and
the
like
greatest one of all.
I
Yes.
was gonna say, the Italian police didn't they go ahead and basically make way for you so you could go ahead and
Yeah.
blast it like 100 miles an hour down the streets?
120. Yeah. No,
Yo,
no, no.
that's so sick,
Yeah.
bro. I
Oh,
remember that
yeah.
story.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Dunkelrot, dark red. It was 1956, 300 SL. And the great things about the coupes as opposed to the roadsters was they were still everyone was just an improvement over the one they built before because they were so handmade. So I think with the coupes, like the 50, they stopped making them at 57, but the 56, 57s were just much better than like the 54 and 55s. And we had a particularly awesome one. Just fast, comfortable, reliable, handled great, had brakes, which a lot of them did not have brakes or good brakes. And yeah, oh yeah, that was the highlight of my life, and that that doing the Mille Miglia. So if you don't know, you go to Italy and take 4 days, drive 1,000 miles. But 2 million Italians stand on the street and cheer for you as you break every traffic law in the country. There's 25 of the most handsome motorcycle cops in the country that are like just these like human peacocks. Like you should see their outfits, and they ride point in front of you, and they literally smack the roofs of cars that are going slow to get them out of the way. Um, I had a grandmother like assault me on my bus to my airplane when she saw my competitor tag and oh yeah. Yeah, it's the greatest. There's nothing comparable. It's totally insane.
I was gonna say
Um,
it's an enthusiast pipe dream, bro.
oh, it's just even better than that. Yeah, it's and I was really lucky when I did it because I drove we were there for 4 days and I drove 3 of the 4 days. I let my navigator but my friend Rob, he used to work for Mercedes, but he drove one day. Um and yeah, it's just absolutely the best, the best, the best, the best, the best.
Ah, man, if there's anybody out there that needs a driver that just, if you want them to go
Yeah.
ahead and do a podcast or anything like that, right here. I'm right here, guys.
Right, that's right.
Oh my gosh. Just throwing that out there. You obviously spent a lot of time down in Miami this past weekend and whatnot. We've talked a lot about MOTA itself and the coolness of everything that they did. Obviously, RM Sotheby's had their auction. I think it was the Friday. Was it the Thursday and the Friday of that weekend, if I'm not mistaken? Like
Yes.
the party atmosphere, the vibes to it looked so amazing. Like shout out to Moda Events for putting on such an amazing event. But me as someone who experienced Arizona Car Week, which by the way, I've talked about it nonstop on the podcast. I loved our Arizona Car Week. You've been out to Barrett Jackson on a
Yeah,
variety of different
it's
occasions.
very
It's
good.
it's
Like,
yeah,
Barrett Jackson, not my scene, but the car week that surrounds it is quite impressive. I was and
absolutely.
every time I go to Phoenix, Scottsdale, I'm always blown away by the level, high level of the cars and the community and the enthusiasm.
Yep.
And yeah, there's some real stuff out there.
We're doing we've got a lot of things coming up here in the Phoenix metropolitan area, which me as someone who's boots on the ground can say, oh man, like I feel like we're really doing a great job of evoking the great car culture that we have here.
Yeah.
So as part of Arizona Car Week, we obviously have Barrett Jackson, but we also have RM Sotheby's and we also have Bonhams. And it was so interesting because as much as I love going to RM Sotheby's, and I do, it was such a differentiation of what you know Arizona or Arizona's RM Sotheby was compared to Miami's, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, uh, I want to be very careful with how I say this, but for lack of a better term, it was boring compared to what was in Miami. And I don't know if that is because a different level of energy of what is Miami. I don't know if
Picking up a
because
Lego. Hang on a second.
yeah, go for it, brother.
Sorry,
All
I keep
good.
stepping on this Lego. My guess would be it's just the Barrett Jackson effect, meaning that there's a
Barrett
certain
Jackson is
type
the
of
biggest party in
buyers.
town. Yeah,
There's a certain type of buyers that get excited about Barrett Jackson. These are people that are interested in like muscle cars, for lack of a better term. Whereas the real connoisseur collectors, they don't deal with Meekums or Barrett Jackson. And I don't know if you saw Spikes this week, but like Seinfeld was on talking about
yep.
his 917 and why he sold it at Meekums. And Meekums is trying to raise their profile. So instead of, Chevelles on 24s, they hey, here's a $25 million Porsche 917.
Owned by Jerry Seinfeld, mind you. Yeah.
Owned by Jerry Seinfeld and Steve McQueen. Don't
and
let's
Steve McQueen.
say,
That's
yeah, and
which
Steve
is
McQueen.
which
Yeah.
which a lot of people would go ahead and say is an even bigger profile than respectfully Jerry Seinfeld, which
Oh,
is
way
crazy.
bigger. And Jerry would be the first set. And I don't even know if it was
Exactly.
owned by Steve McQueen, but it's the car from the movie.
Right.
Um, but anyways, so yeah, so I just think like, nobody, it's not a destination. Barrett Jackson is not a destination for the serious um 10-figure car collector.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
lot different vibe, and because the RM Sotheby's auction that happens in Phoenix is so much smaller and not the feature of Car Week here in
yeah,
Phoenix, it all of a sudden takes a smaller profile, which makes
yeah.
perfect sense. Although you'll appreciate this, Johnny, because I know that you haven't been out for Barrett Jackson over the last couple of years. I know you've been
No,
out in
I
the
have. I
past.
was there. I think I was there in the middle of the pandemic, like 2022.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yep.
But I think you'll appreciate this. The diversification at Barrett Jackson this year in terms of what they had for sale was awesome, dude. I
Hmm.
mean, you probably knew we had the Huna truck there,
Hmm.
that went for sale when it across the block. There was an LP670 SV that went across the block, which actually went for not as much money as I expected. But hey, whoever bought it got a freaking deal.
Look, I
Let's
mean, the front of the tent at Barrett, you always see, like there's always like an AMG 6x6. There's
sure.
always like a bunch of 4GTs. There's always a couple like 675 LT type things.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
They had an
there are,
F5 Venom. They had an F5 Venom and a
yeah,
959. Yeah.
yeah, there are a couple of those, but again, it's just not like what you had at MOTA. Like, I don't know if you saw that little video I did, but they had like a perfect, literally perfect yellow Countach that was flanked by an F50, an F40, a Carrera GT, a 959S,
Yeah.
well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it was literally ridiculous. Uh so, and that's I guess would be the difference. And again, like, and not nothing against Barrett Jackson, but if you're gonna, there is a type of car that you're more likely to see. Like, there's no Chevelles, there's no put it like this. There's one um Lamborghini at Barrett Jackson, and there's 20 Resto Mod Broncos.
Right.
There's one Resto Mod Bronco at my Florida RM auction, and there's 20 Lamborghinis, if that makes any sense.
I totally understand. By the
Yeah.
way, you mentioned Bronco, and I don't think I've really talked about this on the podcast because, well, as a podcaster, and Johnny, I know that you as a writer, we are very busy individuals, and as much as we always pride ourselves on putting out the best content possible, we are prone to mistakes because we're not perfect. I bring this up because I drove one of the Gateway Broncos while they were here for during Arizona Car Week and whatnot. Um, and so it's a Resto Mod Bronco. It's like a $300,000 Bronco. Yeah, I know you probably know of them and stuff like that. I drove
I
one.
know of them. I've never driven one.
Okay, cool. Okay, this is one of the few times that I've driven a vehicle that Johnny Lieberman hasn't. That's put that in the history books, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I know you've driven other resto modded Broncos, of course. They all usually have the same
I don't
disciplines.
I don't think I have, honestly.
No?
I don't think I've
Okay.
I don't think I've ever driven a Resto Mod Bronco.
Dude, I loved this thing.
Yeah,
Loved it, loved it, loved it. It was so well done.
yeah.
Um, what I really appreciated about it was the finish. And I think that's something that as you in particular being a journalist, you always talk about the fit and finish. Like, how does this thing all come together? A lot of times you'll go ahead and see resto mod companies. It's basically they almost put just a shell over a brand new car, and it's like that's not really a resto mod to me sometimes. And or they'll go ahead and you get in the car, and even though it's a resto mod, but everything is so a little bit too modern for what the car is supposed to actually represent and whatnot. I think Gunther Works obviously does a very great job to really keep the aesthetic of like, no, this is still absolutely a 993 until you go ahead and give it the beans, as you would know, and whatnot. And what I loved about the Gateway was I got in this thing and I'm looking around. I'm like, yo, this is just a beautiful Bronco just made 50 years later type of
Mhm.
deal. And like, it has a Coyote V8. It's got enough grunt, like plenty of grunt. Like you got 450 horsepower. And I'm like, you don't need any more than that. By the way, they make one with the Shelby motor, Johnny, and they gave it a 6 speed because they're psychopaths. I love these guys. They're heroes. And it was great. And it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, if you're going to go ahead and spend a lot of money to go ahead and recreate a Bronco, like to go ahead and make it rad as hell, this is how you would do it. And that was something that I drove around and I was like, yeah, I fuck with this, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, I've been driving and friends with the Icon, which is basically Jonathan Ward's company.
Jonathan Ward, yeah.
And he started with the Toyota FJ, the Icon version of it. And I remember it was funny. I remember back in, this was 15 years ago, but those were 180 grand.
Yep.
And everyone just thought he was mad, like literally crazy. How can you charge this much for an old Toyota? And I always remember like first time I drove one was probably 2008 or so, 2007. And I said, all right, well, why does this damn truck cost so much? Grr, grr, grr. And he's like, well, like these are the hinges that release the windshield. And we spent a lot of time looking at hinges, and what we've determined was that the 1906 Sub-Zero refrigerator has the coolest hinges. So that's what we use. And then the rear view mirrors are off of a Learjet because they're the best. And blah blah and on. The whole truck was like that. So yeah, like, I don't know anything about Gateway. I'm sure it's great. But I've seen like, I've never driven one weirdly, but I've seen a lot of the Icon Broncos.
Yeah.
And they're masterful. Everything that guy does is just like just incredible. But I've driven other I won't mention them, but I've driven other resto mods from companies, and yeah, they're like 70% done, kind of like didn't really finish the interior, like oh yeah, like we replaced the parts that were broken, we left on the old parts, so it's kind of a mishmash.
Right.
uh, so is it reflected in the price point? Sometimes, not always. Sometimes the ones that aren't finished and aren't that great are really expensive, so
Yeah.
it
Uh,
just depends.
Exactly. And that's what I really appreciated about about the gateways was I'm looking around and I'm like, yo, this is finished. Like
Hmm.
this is how it's supposed to be done. And it was really something that I wanted to go ahead and give major props. And unfortunately, I did a podcast with their CEO, and that podcast may or may not have gotten lost on accident, which was
Oh
my
no.
bad. It happens. It happens. They're gonna the
Sure.
CEO is great. Shout out to Seth. We're gonna go ahead and do another one, and we're gonna go ahead and really make that one count and whatnot. But I hadn't gotten a chance to go ahead and talk about it. So that was one of the cool things that I did and whatnot.
um
But yeah,
I was gonna say, speaking of fun resto mods, I drove there's this company out of England called Everati, and they
yep.
showed MOTA, and I know Justin, the owner, and Frankie, another employee, and they brought a Series 2 Defender that they do basically just an EV conversion. And I'd driven previously. They did a 911 convert, and that's their thing, is they just do EV conversions. And like, 911, like you might say, well, why would you do that? Well, it doubles the horsepower would be the big reason to do it, and actually makes it lighter. But what they're doing is like Series 2, which everything that's great about it is not the powertrain. Like
Right.
nobody's like, ooh.
Ooh, this Series 2 Defender really can
Yeah.
handle, guys.
Yeah, or like they do Mercedes Pagodas, so that's the SL
Oh,
after
that's
the 300
sick.
SL. So it's again, beautiful car, charming interior. Nobody's ever said, "Oh, what a great powertrain." Like it's kind of always a bad engine and a bad transmission. And same, the Series 2 is really great. I mean, it's still just as uncomfortable and miserable as all old competitors are. And I just don't fit. I don't have the ankle flexibility to work that gas pedal. But it was really fun to drive around. We just drove around the Biltmore hotels in Coral Gables, which is a old money, beautiful part of Miami, and we just drove around the neighborhood, felt totally at home.
Yeah.
Um, and they're also doing a couple Lamborghini LM002s, which I'm very,
Oh
very interested in.
shit.
Um, that's a little sacrilege. I don't know. I don't know the deal if they're taking existing ones and ripping out the V12
That's
and the manual,
oof.
or if they're just getting new body panels. I don't know what they're doing, but I know, people always say, "Oh, that new Hummer EV, it weighs, over 8,000 pounds. So does an LMO too.
Yes, it does.
That's a gas car." I think a lot of that weight was the 80-gallon gas tank. So,
Yep. Which
but
and you still get like 10 miles to the gallon in that bitch
oh,
anyways.
way less than 10.
Yeah.
Way less than 10.
Yeah. That's wild, dude.
So that was
I
fun though. That was a really neat little car.
yeah.
Um, the little Series 2 Defender was like, oh, this makes sense as an EV. I get it. I was just telling them, I'm like, dude, change the pedals out. Like these pedals
Right.
suck. Like,
Right. Well, we've seen enough that they do the LS swaps. And by the way, I love a good LS swap. You love a
sure,
good LS swap. LS swap the world, but at the same time, you know, depends on what you're going to be doing with the Series 2 Defender. Are you going to, what's the,
I
the
don't
electric
I
G
don't think
Wagon? Yeah.
yeah, I don't think real quick, I don't think a LS would fit into a Series 2. I think that's, inline four-cylinder is kind of
Oh,
what
you're
that
right.
should
It's
be,
true.
I
I was,
think.
I was
I
thinking,
don't know enough about it, but I just,
yeah.
LS is kind of big-ish, so
Yeah, I was more thinking 80s and 90s. You're absolutely right
sure,
because that's usually the ones that they do the swaps into and whatnot.
sure.
Um, but it, like by the way, Johnny, I saw an electric G wagon last month over in Scottsdale. Um,
G580.
yeah, I was like, oh snap! Like, look at that. Somebody bought one, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, yo, is this like Mercedes of Scottsdale's like loaner? And then I had a friend of mine. They were like, that's definitely not a loaner. And I was like, that's incredible. That's good on somebody for ordering one. And I'm hoping that a lot more because they're rad, dude. I mean, I love a G Wagon. I know, of course, Johnny G Wagon Lieberman. Like
Yeah.
the
I
the
mean,
man who jumped at 9 feet in the air in the sand dunes 15 years ago. That was that 15 years ago. It was like 10 years ago. Oh,
it was only about 6 years ago, but yeah.
was it really? I'm sorry,
I'm
Johnny. My
I'm
bad,
not
bro.
that
I feel
old.
like I remember. I feel like it was a while ago. That's my
Yeah.
bad. That's
I
my
was on an
bad. Not to age
off-road
my boy.
track, but yes. Um,
My bad, brother.
but yeah, no, the G580 is dope. It's and for the way most people use G wagons, like
Yeah.
EV is the perfect application because they just cruise around Beverly Hills or cruise around Scottsdale. I'm like, you
Cruise around Miami. Yeah.
oh, even better, cruise around Miami. Like,
Cruise
yes,
around Miami in a G wagon.
yeah, I've
You're
done that.
living
It's
your
great.
best
It's
life.
great. Yeah,
Oh
white
my
G wagon
gosh.
in Miami, nothing's better.
Oh my God. Oh, dude, I am to everybody. You'd love to see it, bro. My man, I think the cheapest car that we've had in this conversation has probably been, I think you dropped a 675 LT, which right now market wise is going for like about low 400s, maybe high 300s.
Oh, I think
Let's
that Everati Series 2 is pretty. It was well under 400.
Well under 400. All right, cool. Let's take it down a few hundred thousands, Joe.
Okay.
I always love hearing about the GR. I've been
Oh,
seeing everything that you've
oh,
been up to. I
yes.
saw that you drove an 8 speed too. I know Farah was out in Austin driving an 8 speed too, and whatnot. Uh, they finally come to under what do you call it, adjusted market over at dealerships. Now you can actually get one at MSRP.
Mhm.
The local Toyota dealership has a couple of GRs that come through. How long have you had yours? Has it been a year?
Yeah, I got it in March, so it's been a year. Yeah.
Oh, that's rad, dude. So
Yeah.
I don't think you're ruining it. I know other people will say that you're ruining it. I know you'll probably say that you're ruining it. I don't care. I love it. You are making this thing into an absolute,
I have weaponized my
you have
GR
made this
Corporate.
into a
It
nuclear
is,
weapon.
yeah. So, all right, long story short, nose to tail, we have installed a new radiator, Jackson Racing radiator, intercooler, and oil cooler. I have an Eventuri intake, big giant carbon fiber barrel of an intake. There's a ECU Tech company out of the UK. They're handling the reflashing. It's got FI exhaust, active crazy pants exhaust.
Probably
down,
the
downpipe
craziest
catback.
exhaust setup I've seen on a GR Corolla yet,
Yeah,
by
it's pretty
far. It's
There,
pretty
there might,
wild.
there, I won't, I'm, there might be a better one going on, but I'm quite happy with this one. There might be a lighter weight titanium one going on, but it's nuts. I got brakes are by this company, Terox out of, they're also British. So a lot of this stuff's British because like even Turi, because, the GR Yaris has been out for a couple of years longer than the GR Corolla. So there's
Right.
the base for the aftermarket over there. I got the Chemblock Turbo Mac 1552 wheels. I got these incredible Toyo Proxys 2 tires, which I was sort of like I have a relationship with Toyo. They gave me some tires for my Rivian, and I was like, well, I like the Pilot Sports I have on there, and they're like, oh, you should check these out, and I got them. Like I got them in January, and they actually didn't hit the market till February. And they're like they're revelatory. They're
That's what's up.
really good tires. Real Pilot Sport competitor. And anyways, but the all that, and then the tune. I'm working with this company down in like San Diego called Counterspace Garage. This guy Zach and they're partners with ECU Tech, and it's pretty cool. Like you plug this little like wireless thing into your ODB2 port, and then the tuning company they send you a file to your phone, and then you just download from your phone to the car. It takes about I don't know 5 minutes per file to download, and it you're just remapping everything. And I just installed the 24th reflash yesterday. Naturally, it's pouring rain, so I haven't really driven it,
Right.
um,
But if there's
but
a car that can handle the rain, it would be that thing.
well, let me yeah, I do data logging
Yeah.
then send him the results, and I'm not going to be doing what I do in the rain.
In the rain, yeah.
Yeah. Uh but um but when we put the 20-second reflash on, wow, like finally got it. Like real power. And we haven't dynoed it yet, but we're thinking it's probably about 60 horsepower up. So it's probably went from 300 to 360. And torque is probably well, the first thing we do is we got rid of the 2024 software and put on the 25, the Marizo
Okay.
patch. So torque's probably, we added about 50, so it's close to maybe 340 to 350 pound-feet of torque. But it's enough, like in second gear, it'll drop your stomach. Like it's quick, it's legit
Please.
quick now. Um, and I wish I would have driven this one because I guess there was I, I should pull up the text, but long story short, this a lot of this patch is coming from the UK. They'd spent like 3 weeks working on something, and what's cool is it's not just one map. You actually get three maps. Well, yeah, up to four. The software can support four maps. So we had two. We had what we were calling Marizo Plus and then Max Power. So now we have Marizo Plus, Mid, and then Max Power. And supposedly, I haven't even got to try it, but the Max Power is now a huge, huge jump in everything. But yeah, it's just it's so fun. It's such a great car.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just shocked by how good we made this thing.
No, I mean, I keep seeing you post about it and whatnot, and then I'm like, this dude bought the right car. You know what I mean? Like you, because
Oh,
that's the thing. It's about buying the right car. And I know you
mm,
still love the Rivian, and the Rivian is the perfect truck for you and your family. I know how much you love that thing. It's honestly, and I've said it before on this podcast, I'll say it again. To me, the Rivian is one of the best pickup trucks on the road today, period, bar none. But as a
yeah.
car, as a performance car, that GR
I mean,
Corolla is just ace, dude.
it's it's great. I sadly I think like the Rivian would still kick the shit out of it,
Of
but
course, of course it would. It's got
that's just
what is it,
horsepower.
800 plus horsepower? That
Yeah, 830.
like
Well, yeah, and then the new
immediate,
ones,
by the way.
the new quad motor Rivian's 1,025, and
Who
hits
needs that, by the
60.
way?
Hits six. I need it. I need it. Hits 60 in 2.5 seconds. Like it's nuts. But anyways,
Wild.
but my little Corolla, is yeah, it's I'm having such a ball with it, and I just can't believe how well everything worked out,
Yeah.
and then we're kind of like I just Leno he had me on with the car and he drove it around And I was asking him, I said, yeah, because this is a guy that he's got 1,000 horsepower P1, blah blah. But I said, like, what do you think? Like, because the next step, once we really get this dialed in, would be okay. Now you got to start thinking about valve springs. Now you got to start thinking about head gasket. Oh, you
Right.
got it open. All right, now you're going to put in cams. Now a bigger turbo. Oh, now you need a new clutch. And you really start playing with that. And Jay was just like, just leave it. It's great as is. Like, just leave it alone.
Right.
Uh, and he kept saying, like he's got a Fiat 500 Abarth, and he just kept saying, like, I'm getting rid of that, gonna get one of these. And I was trying to tell him, like, mine's tuned. This is not, the car is great stock. I have no
Right.
problem. I bought it stock,
Yep.
I've just what we've been able to accomplish. I should figure out what the total cost is because it's not cheap. Like the
It's not gonna be
exhaust.
cheap. Yeah.
I mean, that freaking intake that and again, I got lucky. A good friend of mine who used to be at Gunther Works, he's friends with Even Turi, so they just sent me this thing. But it's like $4,000-5,000 intake or something. It's
Right.
big carbon fiber thing. Um, but yeah, I'm very happy with where the car is currently, and I'm dying because that's what I told him too. I said, like, okay, look, I'm having fun, but this is the 24th patch, and each time I do that with the data logging, it's like a half hour, so it's
Right.
like a lot of time doing the same, data log. You got to do a pull from like, in third gear from 2400 to red line. You got to do it like 4 times, and then we're also checking for elevation and blah blah blah. It's a lot of work. And he's like, oh, just like a few more because he's having fun fine tuning. And look, they're using me as a guinea pig to really dial it in on California gas. That's the real secret.
Absolutely.
Is that
Absolutely.
our stupid 91 octane? Um, long story short, the engine just doesn't want to detonate, so it goes into like all this like anti-knock protocols, and so we're just trying to smooth everything out. And supposedly this patch is just like smooth plateau power delivery. So
Right. I remember, man, this would have been years ago. And I don't know if it was Matt having a podcast with you or if this was when Jethro had been on the podcast. But I remember Jethro drove your old Fiesta ST. And Jethro straight up to, I remember this story vividly. He was like, Johnny, don't even think about touching the suspension on this car. I remember that conversation vividly. What do you think Jethro Bovington would tell you if he were to drive your GR Corolla up in the California canyons
oh, he
today?
just told me how much better his 996 tuner is. But no, well, I heeded his advice in both cases, meaning I never touched the suspension on the Fiesta. I only did a little bit of tuning on
Right.
that. But the one thing I really love about the GR Corolla above everything else is how it handles. So I
Mhm.
haven't touched, and I've been offered. I haven't done anything to the suspension.
Yours is a circuit edition, right? Or is it a
Yeah, mine's a
okay?
circuit. Yeah,
Okay.
but I haven't touched the suspension. Now, new wheels, tires, and brakes does affect the weights on the wheels and everything. So,
Right.
um, but I just got real lucky. I got real
Right.
lucky. Everything got better. It could have got worse, and it just got
Yeah.
better.
And 1552 does such a good job with their stuff.
They're good wheels. They could be
Yeah.
lighter, but I think they're about. I didn't weigh, but in my mind, they're about the same weight as what's stock. So and they look great.
Mm.
Um, but the brakes, I got new rotors up front, and I think that saved quite a bit of weight with the over the OEM rotors, and yeah, so I think Jethro would be quite happy with my car. I think anybody who likes driving would really, really enjoy my car. It's just like I said, it's just a little weapon.
Yeah.
Uh and I'll give you a for instance, I don't know if you know Mike Schaefer, the photographer, but he was out
Yes, of course. Capital
and I
Sunset. Goat,
yeah,
man. Yeah, I
yeah.
love that
And I
guy.
had I had the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, which is a
Hmm.
very good performance car. And we were driving around together, and we were both just like, "Yeah, the Hyundai's okay, but man, the Corolla, you know." And that was before it had any power, and now it's got some guts. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, we'll see what the dyno says. I have a feeling it's actually making a little bit more torque than my tuner guy thinks, but again, I keep coming back to this phrase, but just a little weapon. It's I had a friend in the car, and she starts screaming. We were driving like cold water at night or something. It's just like slow down, and like it's like I like that. I like that.
Well,
So
it's just a riot. That's the best word to go ahead and describe that thing. Is that it's just a riot.
yeah,
As someone who I owned a Focus ST for 2 years, and I always tell people I had a love hate relationship with that car. But when it was on point, that car was on point. And then the GR Corolla is 10 times what that car is.
ten
I'll
times.
hundred
Yeah,
percent admit that, right? I have friends of mine who have Focus RSs, and it's like to me from Focus RS, GR Corolla is the next logical step in the evolution of what the hot hatch should be and whatnot. Because I don't think the Focus RS gets us anywhere near as much credit as it should for what it did those 4 year run that it was out, because it was truly just an absolutely just cracker of a car, dude. Like that thing ruled and whatnot. And of
good.
course,
The suspension was problematic, but it
it
was
was
it
it
was.
was relatively stiff, we know that, but still, like overall as a
I
package,
think in the history of production cars, there was the SL65 Black Series,
I love
uh,
that car.
undrivable with that suspension, and then the Focus RS, and the Focus RS might have actually been worse. I can't remember,
Oh
but
my god, that is the
it,
one and only time you'll ever hear an Focus RS and SL65 be compared to one
oh,
another.
very similar. They're miserable
Yeah.
to drive at for more than five. Oh, I'll throw a what's that horrible thing? Oh, the Senna, McLaren Senna, just why you have hydraulic suspension. It doesn't have to ride that shitty. It really, you're doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, miserable car to be in for longer than 10 minutes. Just like, but the Corolla, while stiff, isn't too stiff. And actually, I drove the 25 and they just made it stiffer. Um, I
Yeah.
I think it does like high speed stability better, but um, or high speed cornering, I should say. But kind of a step, I don't say backwards, but it's just stiffer. So
Does
my
it also have to
cars,
do with the fact that because it comes with the automatic as opposed to the manual that stiffened it up, or no? It
no,
doesn't have.
what they did, they put helper springs on it, like the GT3 RS has. So basically, um, when you get two-thirds of the way, I'm making that up, but let's say about two-thirds of the way through the mainspring, um, it's a neat trick. So in other words, you can have relatively soft springs because you get two-thirds of the way through compression, and then you hit another shorter spring.
Okay.
Uh, and that way the mainspring two-thirds of the time is relatively soft, and then as it bunches up, you hit another spring. So that's kind of what they did, or not kind of, it's exactly what they did. So again, GT3 RS technology on a Toyota Corolla, which I love. Um, do you need it? I don't know. I like I said, like the cornering at very high speeds, like 70 plus, um, seems to be a little bit better. But man, I was ripping my car up in the hill, and I was like hitting one corner at 103, and it felt great. I was like, this, this is bad. Kids don't do that. That's too fast. But this felt,
Allegedly.
you got to catch me. But it felt just, I was like, I love my car. So
Oh, dude. No,
I'm very fortunate. I'm very happy. I'm very lucky with how it all came out.
for sure. And we can obviously thank Clink for the color choice because you obviously based it off Rapid Blue, clearly. Shout out to Clink, man.
Flame blue. Yeah, no, it's funny. I just don't like boring colored cars. And
You
so the
have to
most
have a good color on those
like
cars.
and I like the red. I like the red. I don't do they do a red circuit? I can't remember. But most of these GRs are white, silver, gray, or black. And I just was like it turned out my car, the blue, was 1 year only. Turned out my Rivian yellow was like, basically 2 years only. So I have all these like out of production car colors.
Yeah, I love that.
So
And then I mean
um
the Fiesta was red, right? Fiesta was
lava. Yeah. So it was
lava.
kind of a
Yeah.
dark orange. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah, no, I had a purple Alfa Romeo. I got
Oh,
a
that's
some.
right. The Alpha barely lasted the TI, the Julia TI. You had
Yeah,
that for a
I had a 3 years, a little over 3 years. I had a
yeah.
green Audi before that. I got a yellow Porsche somewhere. So yeah, I like fun colored cars.
For anybody who's asking about the 914,
Don't ask.
we
Yeah.
literally don't know.
You know more than me. I know nothing. I know nothing.
Oh my gosh, Johnny, it's been a treat, brother, and I know that
Totally. All right. Awesome as
it's
always.
oh always I'll leave you on this because
Yep.
because we always get somewhere in the conversation where I always like to bring this up because I try to be a student of the game, right? I've been following you, I've been following Fair, I've been following so many of the people that I grew up reading and now watching for such a long time that I always like to kind of get a state of the union, if you will, like a
Mm.
state, and we'll keep it to car journalism, not necessarily journalism as a whole, because I think journalism as a whole can sometimes it suffers from a lot of things. It suffers from a lot of subjectivity as opposed to objectivity. And obviously, I think that it's very important to always have a great objective view. You know that better than anybody. But I am curious to see, I'd like to know from your perspective what the state is of car journalism right now and where we are in 2025. Because,
Oh, it's tenuous at best. Yeah,
yeah,
it's tough. It's really tough. It's hard to make money. Um, it's there's the rise of influencers, and nothing against influencers, but they just kind of say what the companies want them to say.
yeah,
Which is and then they get they're very good at gaming logarithms and all that. So the companies are like, oh, like what do we need journalists for?
right,
Uh, these people, you give them $10 and they just say whatever, or you don't even have to give them $10. You give them a hot dog and the car, and they'll just whatever you tell them to say, they say. Um, and it's I see a lot of like regurgitation of specs and concepts from the OEMs. I don't see a lot of like this car is better than this car, and that's really, you know, that's a we need more of that,
it's a
you know.
lost art form.
Yeah, it's just funny. There's so much positivity, but like, okay, that's great. You got a GT3 RS and a Ferrari 296. Which one's better? And don't say, oh, you could afford both. Oh, which one's better? And that's tough. And that's just on the enthusiast side. Like it's hard everywhere. So it's a lot of contraction. I don't know if you saw what happened to Autoblog. This was a while ago already, but like everybody fired, and that like days like that suck because you know they're our colleagues, and that's a lot of misery for one group of people to kind of have to absorb. So yeah, it's not good. It's just not good, and then on top of that, just the whole economy is shaky right now. Um, we were talking, I was going to write something up and didn't do it, but like, take a car, I'm sure you saw the thing. It was some, I think it was on like Fox News where the guy was like, yeah, man, this is an $80,000 Ram truck, which the new tariff, now it's $100,000 Ram truck, which I was laughing because sir, your math, that's a 20% tariff. A 25% tariff would make it much more than 100,000. But like, the Mustang GTD, all American red, white, and blue, built in Canada. So you're gonna put an $80,000 additional fee on a $325,000 car before it even gets to the dealership, who's then going to add another $100,000 or whatever ADM the dealers can get out of it. So it's like, oh boy, is that is that a $500,000 or more vehicle? Like, ooh, and also, yeah, anyway, so it's just everything's very strange right now.
Yeah.
Um, Jim Farley, I think, had the best take. Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, where he was talking about the Mexico Canada tariffs. He's like, this is a gift to the Koreans. This is
Mm,
literally a gift to the Koreans because there's no tariff on Korean goods. Um, and for a lot of reasons, the Koreans so far haven't stuck fact, or I shouldn't say haven't, but there's no there's no NAFTA. It's in other words, if you're an American manufacturer, NAFTA or whatever Trump renamed it, but it's the exact same laws. Was like you could have a plant in Mexico that builds like the transmissions, and you can have an engine plant in Canada, and then you can put it all together in Ohio, and there's no problem with that. Well,
right.
now boy, you have that transmission plant in Mexico. That's a 25% tariff. The engine, you got to pay a 25% tariff on the engine, gets assembled in Ohio. Whereas with the Koreans, there's no tariffs, and they never put plants in Mexico or Canada because there wasn't like a NAFTA for them. So, it's crazy. I know like the tariffs went into effect and then immediately got rolled back a month, but it's a very strange time for the manufacturers, especially like, they don't think in terms of the next, couple months. They think in terms of like years. So, they're making bets on what the market's going to want in 2030 and beyond, and start playing around with stuff like this. And it's just like, how do you account for the price of your product suddenly going up by at least 25%? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's crazy. Uh and hey, like, your Ford truck, your F-150 was probably built in Mexico, and your Dodge Charger was definitely built in Ontario, Canada. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's how it is. And your Jeep was, could be made in Toledo, could be made in Canada. So it's just how things get put together. So it's very strange times. It's very strange times.
It is interesting from me as the enthusiast where I am trying, I try to consume as much automotive media as possible, right? I've also, I remember having a conversation with Matt like a few months ago when he was on the podcast that even though I still consume as much automotive media, I'm a lot more selective about it now these days. More so because it's who I like
Mm.
and whatnot. I don't like I don't like reading as much as I do others, and I watching or even listening. You know, I read you. I obviously watch Matt. Shout out to Sam Seen Through Glass. That's my guy. I've been watching him for like 10 years. I know you're homies with Sam, so shout out to Sam.
I know.
And
I saw Sam in Austria. Yeah,
yeah, oh yeah, you guys went to freaking
Fat
like
Ice
the
Race.
Fat Ice Race, which is awesome. Freaking
Yeah,
so fire.
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
but like
next podcast. Next podcast.
next podcast. Yeah, no, 100%. But my point being is like I'm a lot more selective about it, but then I have to be even more selective about the content that I consume because then I'm like, do you act do how do I know you're not bot, right? Or how do I know that you actually know
Tough.
what the hell you're talking about? Like, and respectfully, I'm not Jonny Lieberman, but do I know more than that respective content creator right over there, or and things of that nature? And like, should people be listening to them? It's like, that's a great question. I don't know. And,
Yeah, I mean, I guess, what you look for is, do they ever say car A is better than car B? If they never, ever, ever say that, then they're probably not reviewing cars. They're just talking about cars.
right,
They're just doing a product demo of the car. Hey, this. It's got these features. It costs this much. You want to look for blah blah blah. This is the new Camry. It does this, does that, but you should totally buy an Accord. It's a better place to put your money.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like that's look for that. And again, that's just a gross overgeneralization, oversimplification. But if you're listening to this and you're like, who should I listen to? Like, the people that are able to say like, you should totally buy, a Boxster over a Lotus or vice versa. Like just
right.
have an opinion. Because you said something, and I disagree, but you said it should be objective. No, good car journalism is 100% subjective.
You're
I
right.
think,
I'm in objective in storytelling, but yeah, I completely understand where you're
yeah,
coming from. You're right, and I
I think
apologize.
this is my opinion about this. It made me feel this way. The myth of objectivity, or the this what's the word I'm looking for? This ideal, like no, you're not um you're not reporting on a baseball game when you do a car comparison test. The Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks. Sorry. Um uh and this was the
My man
score.
had to drop the fact that they won the 2024 World Series because the second last time he was here, y'all got smoked by the D-backs. All right, Johnny, I'll let it go this time, brother.
Insane. But you know what I mean? Like that's objective,
Right,
Subjective is both these cars have four doors, four wheels, make this much horsepower, cost this much. I like this one better. Here's why.
right.
So
I get it, man. Well, I appreciate it. I always love to go ahead and kind of understand from the outside looking in what the game is looking like right now. It's just one of those things because, as an admirer of the thing, I want to know what's going on with the thing that I love and admire, if it's going the right way or if it's going an opposite way where it's like, damn, man, I really hope it doesn't go that way because I love it. I try to I kind of try and imitate it myself to an extent because I'm so invested into it and whatnot. I always like to go and understand what is going on in it. And so I appreciate you being so open and honest about that,
oh
brother. I
yeah,
really, really
my
do.
pleasure. I'll
Yeah.
leave you with this, because it is getting late. And by the
Yeah,
way,
it
thank you
is.
for doing a late
It
podcast
is
to
my
accommodate my
treat.
wacky schedule. Um, I was talking about how car companies think way ahead. And there's a guy from Kia I was talking to, and he was just, he's a futurist for Kia. He plans for the future, and we were kind of having the same conversation, like everything's so strange right now, and da da da. And he's like, yeah, but looking at the mega trends, like things are going to be great by 2027. Just hold on until 2027, and everything's going to be fantastic. I don't know what it means, but I'm like, okay, cool. 2 more years of uncertainty and then just smooth sailing
All right then.
2020.
Okay, I guess I have something to look forward to. Maybe that's when I buy the M2, the F87 M2 comp, which apparently, according to Doug DeMuro, holding like a mofo. And I'm aware of that because I keep seeing them being 49,000 miles and still going for $52,000. That being said, I'm not hating. I'm just very upset that I don't have one in my garage, Johnny.
Hey
Johnny,
man,
man,
that's great car. Great car, man.
I
Good
know.
luck.
I gotta get one. I gotta get one. I gotta get one. So here, I'm putting it out into the ether again. Anybody who wants to sponsor this show, let me know. I got you. Um, it's been a treat, my friend. It's great to see you. By the way,
Great to see you, RA.
what are we rocking on the wrist tonight? I didn't get a chance to wear my Sheffield, but I see you seen your. What do we got? Is that your Seiko?
It's one of the Seikos that I designed with LA Watchmaker.
Yes.
Uh,
Shout out to Cody, my guy.
Yeah, and Cody, actually, I saw him in Miami, and I gave him my other two that I designed that were busted. So he's putting in new movements or whatever, was servicing them or whatever he's doing. He built them, he can fix them. But yeah, this is my green and orange Seiko. So
I love it, dude.
nice little
Well,
turtle. I love this
shout
thing.
out to Cody, who's just the man. I love that guy. I need to get him back on the podcast actually, and
He's
then
he's doing good. He's looking good. I've never seen him. Uh, he when I first met Cody, he had a how do I put this? He had an air of sadness to him, and he seemed just to be totally Mr. Florida. He looks better than I've ever seen him. It was really, really nice to catch up with him. So,
I love that. And shout out to my boy Dill, who's out there in Florida as well, and Jordan, and my boy, our boy, the Speedy Weedy Lorenzo, up killing it up in San Francisco too, and all that good stuff. And yeah, there's it's so funny how the deeper you get into this, the more friends you and I have within the space that we are friends with, and I love it. And
wild.
we need to get you back out here to Phoenix, brother. Need to go ahead.
Hell
We need
yeah.
to go ahead and get some
Yeah,
more
yeah.
tacos like last time, some more carne
That was
asada. That was
that
so
was
good.
delicious.
What a
I
lovely
will
little
say
dinner.
that's what really binds California to Arizona, and we're the
Mm,
only states with decent Mexican food. I
amen
don't
to
care
that.
what anyone in New Mexico says.
respectfully to any New Mexicans that may
You know
be
what I'm
listening to this
saying?
podcast. We
Like
love
it's
you and your green
seriously,
chili, but you can fuck off.
yeah, no, but like exactly. It's just it's so good.
Yeah.
California, oh, California, Mexico, and Arizona has good Mexican food.
Mhm.
Nevada, you can throw Nevada in there, but like anywhere else, like what are you guys even doing?
What are y'all doing? I
What
mean,
is
I love Texas, man, but Texas is so different to what we have in Arizona and California, dude. So
Mexican? What
different.
is that? Yeah, yeah.
It's
That's just putting liquid cheese on everything.
shout out to my Mexican peoples, man. My wife, my three sons are half Mexican, so like I love my
No, I
Mexican.
know. Look,
Yeah,
LA, we have
live.
food
Yeah,
in
of
LA. Like, we're
course.
the best food. But that place you took me to was fantastic.
Great
That's
stuff.
I
Well,
was thinking
the
about
police.
that yesterday when we were trying to get this going. I was like, that was a fun meal. And the
That
end
was a
delicious.
good meal. It was
Yeah.
a great meal, and it was one of the best. That it was, from your perspective, you're hanging out with somebody who's your friend. From my perspective, it's I'm hanging out with my friend, but then also the guy that I've been reading the past 15 years. That
Yeah.
like one of my heroes, and you know that, and you know that that's the relationship and the
All
economy
right.
that we
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
and
All right.
so
All right. All
like
right. All
that.
right.
Nah, I know. All right, I won't. He doesn't want me to put him up on his high horse. I understand it, Johnny. You're the man. Anybody who is, if you're living under a rock and you don't follow Jonny Lieberman, please get out from under the rock. Get an Instagram account and follow him at Jonny Lieberman on Instagram. Um, follow Motor Trend. Follow Spike's Car Radio, which, dude, I love the new setup. Big shout out to Spike and Zuckerman. They're killing it. Loves awesome. I love the brand new studio and everything. It looks
Yeah, I'm just
amazing.
looking. I'm looking this up. I'm gonna get his name wrong. God, what's this guy's name? Sebastian Maniscalco. I always butcher the name. Big comedian. He's gonna be on the show next week. So
Oh, okay, cool. That's what's
yeah,
up, man.
very funny guy.
Definitely.
Very funny guy.
Yeah, this is probably going to be out probably what 2 or 3 weeks out.
Oh, okay. So we'll have
So
the Spice episode out before this. But anyways,
okay,
Sebastian, I butchered your name. I'm sorry.
we apologize, Sebastian.
Yeah.
But that being said, did you drive the Gunther Turbo already? I know you drove the prototype. Did you
I
drive?
drove the mule. I haven't driven the production one yet. I'm getting it. I actually I gotta that's what I'm gonna do
You
tomorrow. I
got it.
gotta call
Okay.
Peter because he called me and he's like, when do you want it? I was like, oh, I gotta check my calendar because just busy. Yeah, just all kinds of stuff lined up. So
All right. Well, the next time that Johnny's back on the pod, we're talking Gunther Turbo,
oh yeah.
definitely. And then who knows? When hit me when you're up in Phoenix, we're gonna get some more carne asada. We're gonna do it.
Hell yeah.
Everybody, please check out the inevitable. Of course, him, Ed Lowe, and then of course Spike's Car Radio. Him, Spike, Zuckerman, Farah on occasion, Seinfeld on
Seinfeld,
occasion.
Leno, we got everybody.
Everybody comes on, and everything and anything that you're doing within the culture, man. We appreciate you and keep doing your thing. You're the man. You know
Thank
that.
you.
We all love to you, brother.
Thank
That being said, you guys can go ahead and find this podcast on Instagram at Tormenting Tarmac, and we're streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those places. And I think we're going to go ahead and get this one up on YouTube. And again, if you see me looking like I'm crying, I was having like an eye itch attack, and it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. Also, it's just me being emotional because Johnny's on the pod. That being said,
you. Jorge, you're the best.
it's always a pleasure. Everybody have a great night. This has been Tormenting Tarmac, is the podcast where the enthusiast never dies. Good night, everybody.